Hello, my beautiful friends. My name is Kim, and I hope you're having a fabulous day today. If you are interested in true crime stories like I am, I hope that you consider hitting that subscribe button. But let's just jump right into it. In April 2020, a 3-year-old boy was rushed to Cook Children's Medical Center in Fort Worth, Texas, by the name of Amari Boone. He was unresponsive, and his parents told the doctors that he had been sick with a high fever and was under the weather leading up to this point, and they believe he has had a seizure. However, as soon as the examination began, doctors began to theorize something else was going on in this case. There were several old broken bones, and Amari had suffered a brain bleed, which left him comatose. No accident could have caused these sorts of injuries. Amari never woke up, and his story highlights themes that many of these cases do, like a frustrating level of incompetence from an institution whose sole job is to keep children like this safe. Amari Deandri Boone was born on June 9th, 2016, to his parents Ariana, George, and Rodney Boone. His mother described Amari as a bright light and the most easygoing child. He loved making people happy and smile. In 2018, she lost custody of Amari and her other son, Amari's younger brother, and his name was Levi, after a series of unfortunate events. It started when Ariana lost her job and could not secure a new one, followed by both her and Rodney losing their home and vehicle. Presumably, this was due to financial constraints. CPS became involved in 2018 while Ariana was pregnant. Mentions of an unstable home life and domestic violence allegations couldn't be ignored in this case. After her children were taken into CPS's custody, Ariana tried to keep it from anybody around her, friends, family. She was ashamed and hoped to get them back before anybody would ever find out that she had lost them. Ariana didn't want to admit she needed help. Rather, she spent time bouncing from couch to couch as she was essentially homeless, and she was pregnant with her third child at the time as well. Amari and his brother, Levi, went through a few different sets of caregivers while in CPS's care. This included Ariana's mother and one of her aunts. But at the start of 2020, a judge ordered that the boys be placed with the parents' friend, Deandri Foley and Joseph Delancey. Ariana, the mom, had known Deandri since she was pregnant with Amari, so she's known him for a while. They were introduced through Rodney, who is the dad, as he and Deandri worked together. So they've known each other at this point, for over a decade. So, whether that says anything, but when you know somebody for 12 years, you kind of feel like you know them, but Rodney had no complaints about the boys being placed. Actually, they recommended that they be placed with Deandri and his life partner, Joseph. While neither he nor Ariana knew Joseph, now they knew Deandri because Deandri had worked with Amari's dad, but they didn't know Joseph that well. They may have met him in passing, but honestly, they really just did not know him. They felt that they knew Deandri well enough, though. I can imagine that this would be a tough decision. Although they didn't know Joseph very well, they did know Deandri, but through foster care, you don't know who they're placing them with. So I guess it's just weighing it, it's better than not knowing it all, I imagine. I don't know. Deandri and Joseph lived together on the 1200 block of Dover Cliff Court in Fort Worth. Prior to Amari and his brother being placed there, a home visit had been performed. That was in December of 2019. And the house and couple were marked as favorable. Background checks were reportedly done. And it was reported that Amari and his brother were said to have adjusted very well to this new environment. They are thriving. They are doing well. All very positive background checks. Everything seemed to be going well. The caseworker who would do scheduled visits found Deandri and Joseph to be engaged and enthusiastic caregivers. It all seemed rather idealistic. Unfortunately, in these stories, that is never the case. Shortly after the COVID-19 quarantine period began, Amari was taken to the hospital with a sprained ankle. The couple told the parents that Amari had fallen down the stairs, but Rodney, the father, found this very strange. Nothing like this had happened before to Amari. Then in early March, things got much worse. Ariana took Amari on an unsupervised visit that Deandri and Joseph had allowed her to do. This was outside of what they were supposed to be doing. The mom, Ariana, wanted to see her boys, so she called and said, hey, do you mind if I pick them up? I want to go take them for a few hours without the caseworker's knowledge, which was a big no-no, but nonetheless, this is what happened. So Ariana goes over, she picks up Amari. It was on a Saturday morning, and she drove him over to her aunt's house so he could play with his cousins over there. But while she was there, Ariana noticed Amari had bruises around his eyes and a swollen lip. She hadn't noticed this before, but as she's looking at him a little bit more closely, she's like, what the heck is going on? Ariana questioned him about this. Who had done this to you? And when she asked the question, did someone do this to you? He did respond and say yes. But when she asked who did this to you, Amari would not answer. When Ariana then lifted up his shirt, there were visible bruises on Amari's ribcage. She took pictures with her phone in case she needed it. She sent copies to the CPS caseworker, as well as she sent it to the caseworker's supervisor. Ariana sent the pictures to the dad, Rodney, he wasn't messing around. He called Deandri straight away. Ariana says Deandri then called CPS and Adriana's caseworker to tell them that she had kidnapped Amari. When Ariana's caseworker calls her and Ariana asks what she is supposed to do with her son who has these visible bruises on him, and what am I supposed to do? Bring him back to the abusers? And all the caseworker is focused on is why Ariana had Amari with an unscheduled, unsupervised visit. She was told to take Amari back to Deandri and Joseph, or the authorities were going to get involved. Ariana took him back, but she and Rodney requested an investigation into the marks on his body. He was subsequently evaluated at the Cook Children's Medical Center, and the report noted that bruises were evident. Despite this, no effort was made to remove Amari and his brother from that home. And sadly, Amari would die a month later. Deandri and Joseph explained that one of Amari's injuries happened when Amari's brother hit him in the face with the TV remote, splitting his lip. Another was explained that Amari supposedly was running and ran into a fence, causing a black eye. Ariana didn't believe these explanations, saying the stories were inadequate to explain the extent of Amari's injuries. Quote, "No, he had a cut on his lip. 2 black eyes, and bruises on his chest, and a red area, unquote. The caseworker assured Ariana she would increase visitations with the boys and the mom so she could check in on the boys more frequently. It's unclear if this ever happened or not, but I guess this is their way of saying you can check your sons more often for the bruises that are already proven to be on them. For me, that is such a slap in the face for the mom, in my opinion. If my son is being hurt by somebody, I can see them twice a week and inspect their body instead of being more proactive. That seems like a reactive approach. That's what happened. And I'm not even sure that even happened. But on April 10th, 2020, Deandri and Joseph took an unresponsive Amari to the emergency room at the Cook Children's. They claimed that 3-year-old Amari had been running a fever and was feeling unwell for a few days before it got to the point of the state of where they were at the hospital at this point, which they said had happened after he had a fall. As the doctors began trying to figure out what was wrong with Amari, the doctors noticed bruises in various degrees of freshness across his body. Further evaluation showed a fractured pelvis. Do you know how thick your pelvis bone is? A fractured pelvis. Breaks on both arms, breaks to his fingers. That breaks to the fingers. That is just like some torturous, mean, vindictive. But on top of that, you guys, that wasn't even the worst part. He had the brain bleed.
Mommy's right here. I'm right here. We love you, Mari. Everyone's rooting for you. We're trying to get to Grandma's house, so you gotta put on your shoes.
Amari was declared brain dead, and the family had to make the tough decision to remove Amari from support. And this was on Easter Sunday, no less. His little body gave up at 1:19 a.m. on April 12th. The medical examiner stated the death was because of blunt force trauma to the head and was declared a homicide. I have to point out that the dad stated that the bruises on Amari didn't happen until after the COVID lockdown, and it accelerated fast. As we have heard this in so many cases, just to set the stage, this was a time when people were losing income, stress of getting sick or being sick, loved ones being sick and dying, and unemployments and backlogs of unemployment checks. I'm not making excuses here because this boy was beaten to a degree that only a monster could do. And it was a very difficult time for many kiddos with such abusers like Joseph and Deandri. Ariana has been very outspoken on the belief that CPS has not done their job. And if they had done their job and listened to her when she showed legitimate concern in pictures about her son's safety, he would still be alive today. There have been sources that state CPS had other complaints about Rodney and Ariana, the parents, like instability and marijuana use, and as well as physical violence between the pair. They deny the allegations. Although I don't think they deny everything. I think Ariana's been very open that, she has made some difficult decisions. But in the end, it doesn't really change the evidence that was presented while Amari was in the care of CPS / Deandri and Joseph, it doesn't matter what's going on with them because they don't have custody of them. So why one equals the other, I'm not really sure, but I know those are kind of intertwined. It took some time for the arrest to be made that Amari's family was so desperate for, but they did happen. On January 22nd, 2021, both Deandri Foley and Joseph Delancey were arrested on even felony charges of injury to a child by omission. Deandri was facing bodily injury charges while Joseph was facing serious bodily injury charges. The police documents revealed a number of telling pieces of information. Deandri agreed to take on the children without first consulting with Joseph, and the issue of potty training was supposedly causing major issues in the home. So Deandri says, yes, I want the boys, and Joseph wasn't 100% on board, is what I'm hearing here. That Joseph, after the fact, because he had to go through a clearing process, and they did home checks, and CPS would have had to talk to them prior to them getting the boys. So it wasn't like they were just dropped off at their doorstep as it's been reported how it sounds. But it does sound like Joseph wasn't as willing to have the boys as Deandri, but kind of went along with it. So he was struggling, not prepared. And when you have a child that bounces around, potty training is a 100% going to be an issue. Not 100%, but more cases than not, it's the one thing that they can control. It's the one thing that they have. And it is something that just happens. It's documented everywhere. I'm not sure why these foster parents are so surprised, because it seems to be a point of contention a lot. And I know how frustrating it is, because you have to clean sheets, you have to clean clothes, and you're running late and you have to change. I get it. It is very frustrating. But at the end of the day, when you take on a child, you take on those things, and that will pass. They grow out of it. But anyways, so we have a couple different stories here. Joseph claimed that on the morning of April 10th, he and Deandri woke up to get the boys ready for daycare, only to find that Amari was crushed under the playpen with blood evidence to his body. Joseph said he then threw off the playpen off of Amari, and then Deandri walked in. He tried to feel for a pulse, but all he heard was gurgling noises coming from his mouth. Joseph then said that he left the room, leaving Deandri by himself with Amari. Joseph also told the investigators that Amari frequently injured himself while playing, often hitting his head on things or falling from the bed. When Deandri was asked about this, he disagreed. He said that is not true. Joseph was asked about potty training, and he admitted Amari had an accident on the day before, which would have been the 9th, but it would sound like it was during the night, but I could be wrong. He hadn't had a diaper on at the time, and he was in bed with his brother. That would put us at the day of the 10th if we consider over the night, and on the 10th is when he was rushed to the hospital. So I'm not really sure here. This case hasn't gone to trial, so everything in this case is definitely alleged, but they're obviously innocent until proven guilty. But I'm a little bit, the timing just seems a little bit odd, but it does sound like Amari did have an accident, whether it was the 9th or the 10th. I'm not really sure, but Joseph also admitted he was the last person to see Amari that night, the night before. They deny any abuse, but rather state that his injuries were from another fall. Unlucky boy in the world if he's falling to harm himself. Broken pelvis, broken arms and fingers. And the doctor stated that the injuries looked more like from someone who was in a car accident, not from somebody who has taken a fall. According to Deandri, when he woke up, so the first story was from Joseph, now we're according to Deandri. When he woke up on April 10th, he saw Joseph in the bathroom with Levi, Amari's brother. When he got to the edge of the hallway, Deandri saw Amari lying between the beds in the spot that the playpen normally is, where Joseph said he was pinned under the playpen. There was foam coming out of Amari's mouth, and there was blood in his ear. Deandri also noticed a wet stain on the bed, which would be consistent with him having an accident and possibly Joseph snapping. In my opinion, allegedly, I don't know. In March 2021, Joseph Delancey was indicted on 1 count of injury to a child's serious bodily injury and 4 counts of injury to child bodily injury. And Deandri Foley was indicted on 7 counts of injury to a child bodily injury. But what's crazy is that Joseph, before he was arrested, called the dad on Facebook Messenger to ask if Amari was okay. The mom stated that she was about to hit the floor. She just couldn't believe that he wasn't arrested, but they took a while to get them two arrested. Later that same year, in May, Amari's biological family filed a lawsuit against ACH Child and Family Services, the organization that was heading up Amari's case. The lawsuit brings 2 previous emergency room visits to light that were never even added to Amari's case file. To the family, it's clear ACH didn't ensure Amari's safety despite multiple warning signs. Neither Joseph nor Deandri have gone to trial for the death of Amari Boone. I do not get why second-degree murder is not on the table. I don't get it. A petition demanding murder charges for Amari's killers and true justice for Amari gathered over 330,000 signatures, and here we are today hearing only crickets. I hope we know more during the trial, because it does not make sense of why they are not being held or not getting murder charges. This isn't a case of a caregiver who just lost their temper one time. It was prolonged. It was vicious abuse. Amari was just 3 years old, and the system 100% failed him, in my opinion. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. What my hopes is that his story can bring some change and help other children down the road from suffering the same fate. Let's leave a blue heart for Amari and his surviving family. They lost somebody special for no reason, and I hope they get the justice they deserve. Please check out Amari Boone's Facebook page, Justice for Amari Boone, for updates, as well as I'll keep updates on the community tab. Thanks to all my channel members and my Patreons who continue to support me. If you would like early access to new videos or decide the cases I cover next, you can do so by clicking the join button. Well, if you have made it to the end, you are a rock star, and I love you to death. There are more true crime cases in my Crimey Cases playlist for you to check out. Stay safe, my loves, and remember, if you see something, say something. Bye.